They said the old woman on the hill kept a lantern that never went out. Even when thunder cracked across the mountains and the rain drowned every other flame, that small, broken lantern still glowed through the storm, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Some villagers said it was blessed. Others whispered had it burned with a secret of love, loss, and a night no one dared to speak of again. One chilly evening, curiosity got the better of a young boy named Ayan. He had heard those whispers all his life, about the old woman, the light that never died, and the ghostly stories surrounding it. So he climbed the hill, his small feet crunching over fallen leaves, until he reached a crooked wooden house bathed in the orange glow of sunset. Through the window, he saw Grandma Nora, her silver hair tied back neatly, her wrinkled hands polishing an old lantern that looked older than time itself. The glass was cracked, the metal rusted, yet it shimmered softly as if alive. He knocked gently. "Come in," her calm voice said. Inside smelled of cinnamon tea, burning wood, and old memories. Ayan sat near her chair, watching the lantern glow. "Grandma," he began, "why do you keep that old thing?" "It's broken. It doesn't even shine properly." She looked at him, eyes tired yet full of warmth. "Ah, my child," she whispered, "this lantern once saved a life. Maybe even two. And its cracks. They remind me of the night I almost lost everything." Ayan leaned closer, his eyes wide. "What happened that night?" Grandma Nora placed the lantern between them. "Let me tell you, Ayan. It was many, many years ago, when I was younger than your mother." She paused, her gaze drifting toward the fading light outside. "That winter came too soon. The crops failed, the winds howled for weeks, and hunger lived in every home. I owned a small candle shop then, tiny, warm, and lonely. My days were quiet, my nights even quieter." Her fingers trembled slightly as she spoke. "Then one evening, a stranger knocked on my door. His face was pale, his clothes torn by the cold. In his arms, he carried a little child wrapped in a thin blanket. 'Please,' he said, his voice barely a whisper. 'We have walked for 2 days. No food, no light. Can you help us?' I looked at them, weak, trembling, and for a moment, something in my heart wanted to help. But the world had made me hard, Ayan. I had given before, and been left with nothing. So I shook my head. 'I have nothing to give,' I told him, and closed the door. The wind howled outside, louder, colder, almost angry. But I tried to sleep anyway, convincing myself I'd done the right thing. Yet somewhere deep inside, I felt a sound. It wasn't the storm. It was a cry. Soft, fading, desperate. Grandma Nura's voice lowered. When I looked through the window, I saw it. A faint flicker of fire in the snow. That night, the storm grew cruel. The wind screamed against the walls as if the world itself was crying. I tried to close my eyes, but the sound outside wouldn't stop. It wasn't thunder anymore. It was a soft, desperate cry. Something inside me stirred. I took my old lantern, the same one you see now, and stepped into the cold. The snow stung my face. The darkness swallowed my breath. But then I saw it, a faint glow far away, flickering like a dying heartbeat. I ran. And when I reached the hollow near the river, I saw them. The traveler lay motionless in the snow, his arms wrapped tightly around his child. The man was still, his face peaceful, as if he had fallen asleep protecting what he loved most. The child was alive. Barely. I lifted him into my arms, held him close, and hurried home through the storm. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the lantern, but somehow it kept burning, guiding every step. All night, I sat beside the little boy. I fed him warm milk drop by drop and wrapped him in my shawl. And I prayed for him, for the man outside, and for forgiveness. When dawn finally came, the snow had stopped. The first light of morning touched the boy's face and his eyes opened. He looked at me and smiled. A tiny, gentle smile that melted something deep inside my heart. From that moment, my home was no longer silent. The lantern had found a reason to shine again. Days passed and the little boy began to heal. He didn't speak much, but his eyes carried a calm I hadn't seen before. Every evening he would sit beside the lantern, watching its glow as if searching for something inside it. I started calling him Rihan. It means sweet soul. He would follow me everywhere like a quiet shadow. When I prayed, he'd fold his little hands too. When I smiled, he'd smile back. A shy, thankful smile that warmed the old corners of my heart. As the years drifted by, Rihan grew into a fine young man, kind, humble, and full of life. He often said, "Grandma, this lantern feels alive. It burns even when there's no oil left." And I would laugh softly and say, "That's because light doesn't always come from flame, my child. Sometimes it comes from the heart that refuses to go dark." But fate, child, has a strange way of testing even the brightest lights. One cold evening, when the air was thick with silence, there came a knock at the door. A traveler stood there, weary and trembling, holding his young son close. The snow clung to his hair. His lips quivered as he whispered, "Please, may I rest here tonight?" Something in his voice felt familiar. Something that made the lantern's flame dance wildly, as if it recognized the soul standing outside before I did. Rihan hurried to bring the traveler inside. The man's hands were ice cold, his eyes full of exhaustion and fear. I set a bowl of soup before him, while Rihan wrapped the child in a blanket. For a while, only the crackle of fire and the soft hum of the lantern filled the room. Then the traveler spoke, his voice trembling. "I've searched for years," he said, staring at the flame. "My brother vanished long ago during a storm like this one. He had a child with him. I never found them." My heart froze. Rihan's spoon slipped from his hand, the sound echoing like a forgotten memory. The traveler continued. "He carried a lantern just like this one. I remember its light through the snow that night." Tears filled my eyes. I looked at Rihan, and in that moment, he understood. This weary man was his father's brother, the one who had searched through every storm but never found the child. Rihan rose slowly and walked toward him. He placed the lantern between them and whispered, "Your brother saved me with this light. I am that child." The traveler's face crumpled with disbelief, then with grief, and finally with a deep, trembling joy. He held Rihan close, sobbing softly. For the first time in many winters, the flame of the old lantern glowed brighter than ever, as if it too had been waiting for this moment of reunion. That night, I didn't sleep. I just watched the two men, uncle and nephew, sitting beside the same lantern that had once saved a life and healed a broken one. The house felt alive again, filled with warmth, whispers, and laughter. Rihan listened to his uncle's stories, eyes shining like a child again. He learned about his father's courage, how he never let go of him even in death, how he fought the storm so his son could see another sunrise. When the traveler finally looked at me, he said softly, "You gave him a life when the world had taken everything." I smiled and shook my head. "No, my son. The light gave him a life. I only kept it burning outside." The first snow of the season began to fall, but this time, it didn't feel cold. It felt like a quiet blessing. The lantern's flame flickered gently, not from the wind, but from the peace that had finally found its way home. As the years went on, Rayhan built a family of his own, and every winter night, he lit that same lantern, not for light, but for remembrance. A reminder that even in the darkest storms, there is always a hand, a heart, or a hope waiting to guide us back. So remember, child, keep your lantern burning, because you never know whose lost soul might find their way home by its light.